In the sprawling expanse of the Rigel system, amidst the swirling nebulae and distant stars, the human colony on Calypso Minor thrived in a delicate balance of peace and vigilance. War was a distant rumble echoing from faraway conflicts, until that fateful day when the sky lit up with the debris of a battle lost in orbit. Lance Corporal Ilara Miles was off duty, ambling through the verdant fields of the colony's agrarian belt, trying to distance herself from the relentless grind of military life. Her heart was heavy with a solitude that the company of others could not dispel, a solitude born of war and the things she had seen and done in its name. The sky above her flashed an ominous crimson as debris streaked through the atmosphere, a dying ship's final cries as it was consumed by the gravity of the planet. Ilara's military instincts kicked in. She raced towards the crash site, her breaths short, her boots pounding the soft earth, driven by a blend of duty and an unspoken, inexplicable hope. Reaching the crash site, she found chaos incarnate, a shattered alien vessel, its design unlike anything human engineers crafted. Amidst the twisted metal and the flickering flames, her eyes caught a glimmer of movement. Pushing aside smoldering debris, Ilara uncovered the figure of an alien warrior, his body encased in a battered suit of armor that pulsed with dying light. The warrior was unlike any being she had ever seen. His skin was a deep violet, shimmering with a metallic sheen under the firelight. His features were sharp, angled with an elegance that spoke of a race born among the stars. But it was his eyes that caught her, a deep, resonant gold that seemed to hold the mysteries of the cosmos, now dimmed with pain. "Please, help me." The alien's voice was a melodic whisper, carrying through the crackling fires and Ilara's own thundering heartbeat. He was paralyzed, his lower limbs crushed under the debris. Despite the warnings that flashed through her mind, protocols about non-interference and the dangers of unknown species, Ilara's decision was instantaneous. She would not leave him to die alone and forgotten in the wreckage of his own ship. With effort strained by the gravity of compassion over protocol, she managed to free him from the debris. The warrior's breaths were shallow, each one a shimmering ripple across his luminescent skin. "My name is Ilara," she introduced herself, her voice a calming presence amidst the havoc. "I'm going to get you to safety." The alien's gaze held hers, gratitude mingling with pain in his eyes. "I am Vale of the Thessian Guard," he managed, his voice fading with each word. Ilara fashioned a makeshift stretcher from parts of the wreckage and began the arduous journey back to the colony. The terrain was rough, each step a gamble, but her resolve did not waver. Vale's life hung in balance, a silent plea for mercy in a universe too often bereft of it. The return to the colony was a blur of motion and emotion. Ilara's thoughts were chaotic, torn between her unexpected rescue mission and the implications of what she had done. She had saved an alien warrior, a being possibly considered an enemy or a spy. Yet, as she glanced at Vale's serene face, marked by pain but resolute in survival, she felt a kinship, a shared understanding born of battle and loss. As the gates of the colony approached, Ilara felt the weight of reality settle upon her shoulders. She was no longer just a soldier, she was a rescuer, a human who had chosen compassion over fear, a bridge between two worlds that might yet understand each other through acts of kindness. Vale's whisper broke through her reverie. "Thank you, Ilara, for choosing to see me." Her reply was simple, yet it encompassed all the turbulent emotions she felt swirling within her. "In the vastness of space, how could I not?" she whispered back, her voice thick with emotion. The colony's medical team rushed to meet them as they breached the final hill, the beginning of a journey neither Ilara nor Vale could have anticipated, a journey of healing, understanding, and the relentless pursuit of peace in a war-torn galaxy. Ilara watched as the medics carefully transferred Vale onto a hover stretcher, his condition stabilizing yet still critical. She followed them into the sterile brightness of the colony's medical bay, a stark contrast to the dark chaos of the crash site. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of antiseptics and the quiet hum of medical equipment. She felt out of place amid the flurry of medical personnel, yet unwilling to leave Vale's side. The chief medic, a stern woman named Dr. Halsey, approached Ilara, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "You realize, Corporal, that what you've brought us is beyond our usual remit. This Thessian, you called him? Dr. Halsey paused, eyeing Vale with a clinical detachment. He's not just another casualty of war. He represents something much larger. Potentially, a diplomatic incident. Ilara met her gaze squarely, the weight of her decision pressing down on her. I couldn't just leave him there, she said, her voice firm despite the uncertainty that gnawed at her. What would that have made us? Dr. Halsey sighed, the lines of her face softening slightly. Perhaps more cautious, but potentially less human, she conceded, turning back to her team. We'll do what we can for him, but I need you to understand, the consequences of this will reach beyond this med bay. As the medical team worked, Ilara found herself pacing the confines of the observation deck, her mind racing. Vale's presence here was a beacon, a signal that would inevitably draw attention, not just from the human authorities, but from the Thessian command as well. She wondered if peace could truly be brokered on the back of such an unexpected and tumultuous event. Hours turned into days, and Ilara spent every moment she could spare at Vale's side, watching over his recovery. As he regained consciousness and strength, their initial cautious interactions grew into a deeper, mutual understanding. Vale spoke of his world, Thesia, describing it with a palpable longing, a planet of vast oceans and floating cities, a stark contrast to the rugged, earthy terrain of Calypso Minor. The war between our species, Vale said one evening, his voice a soft echo in the quiet of the med bay, is rooted in misconceptions and greed, in the desires of those far removed from the front lines. We are not so different, you and I. Ilara listened, her thoughts adrift. She thought of the countless briefings and reports, the faceless enemy described in terms laden with suspicion and hostility. Yet here was Vale, embodying none of that. Instead, he spoke of hopes, of art and culture, of his family and the world he feared he might never see again. Their growing bond did not go unnoticed. Colonel Anders, Ilara's commanding officer, summoned her one afternoon. His office was austere, the walls lined with digital maps and battle plans. Corporal Miles, your actions have not only saved a life but also opened a door, one that I'm not sure we're ready to step through, he began, his voice grave. Ilara stood before him, her resolve clear. Sir, with respect, maybe it's time we reconsider what we're ready for. Vale isn't the enemy. He's proof that there's a chance for something better than endless conflict. Anders rubbed his chin, contemplating her words. What you're suggesting is a shift in strategy, Corporal. It's not just about rescuing a soldier anymore, it's about reshaping the way we see the universe. Ilara nodded, her decision unwavering. Isn't that what progress is about, sir? Changing how we see things. The colonel sighed, the burden of command etched into his features. I'll consider your words. In the meantime, keep this to yourself. The fewer people who know about your Thessian friend, the better. As she left the office, Ilara felt the isolation of her path. Yet, she also sensed a growing alliance with Vale, a bond forged not just in the fires of survival but in the quiet moments of shared vulnerability. She returned to the med bay, determined to protect this fragile thread of understanding, aware that each step forward was a step into uncharted territory. In the sterile glow of the med bay, the rapport between Ilara and Vale deepened, weaving a tapestry of trust from threads of shared stories and silences. Outside, the gears of bureaucracy and military protocol churned, unbeknownst to them, shaping a reality that could tear apart the delicate peace they nurtured. Vale's recovery was marked not just by the healing of his physical wounds but by the unveiling of his mind's landscape, a terrain rich with the philosophy and ethics of his people. He introduced Ilara to the Thessian concept of Ishal, a principle of universal balance and respect for all beings, which guided his actions as much as any military code. The principles of Ishal dictate that we, Thesians, navigate the cosmos not as conquerors but as seekers of harmony, Vale explained one evening, the light of the room casting shadows that danced to the rhythm of distant stars. Ilara listened, her expression thoughtful. And yet, we find ourselves at odds, caught in a war that neither side wants but neither side can seem to end. Vale nodded, his gaze drifting towards the viewport, where the curvature of Calypso Minor lay against the backdrop of space. Conflicts are fueled by fear, and fear thrives on ignorance. What you and I are doing here, this dialogue, it is the antidote to that ignorance. As their conversations ventured into the realms of politics and philosophy, Ilara felt the scales of her understanding shift. The enemy, once a vague and menacing shadow in her mind, now had a face, a culture, a philosophy she found not only respectable but admirable. However, the sanctuary of the Med Bay could not keep the outside world at bay forever. Ilara received a summons from the Intelligence Directorate, a body that oversaw all matters of security and espionage within the colony. The meeting took place in a room chilled by the breath of secrecy, walls lined with screens displaying cryptic data streams. Agent Cashin, the Directorate's lead officer, was a man whose presence was as sharp as the crease in his uniform. "Corporal Miles, your association with the Thessian has not gone unnoticed," he began, his eyes piercing. "You may see an opportunity for diplomacy, but you must understand, your actions could be perceived as treasonous." Ilara met his gaze without flinching. "Sir, what I see in Vale is an opportunity for peace. Isn't that the ultimate goal of any conflict? Peace is a luxury we cannot afford if it blinds us to the threats at our doorstep," Cashin countered, his voice icy. "You are to cease all non-official contact with the alien. Consider this a direct order from the Directorate." Frustrated but undeterred, Ilara left the meeting with a simmering anger. The thought of severing her ties with Vale, just as understanding was within reach, was intolerable. She needed allies, and she needed a plan. That night, under the cloak of darkness, Ilara made her way to the communications array nestled on the edge of the colony. Using her clearance codes, she sent a covert message into the depths of space, directed towards Thesia. It was a gamble, a message of peace penned in hope and desperation. Days passed with no reply, each hour stretching taut with tension. Meanwhile, Vale's strength returned, and with it, a resolve to bridge the gap between their peoples. Then, just as the strain seemed unbearable, a signal pierced the silence of the cosmos. A reply from Thesia. The message was encrypted, a puzzle meant for their minds alone. As they decoded the message together in the seclusion of the Med Bay, Vale's face lit up with a mixture of relief and triumph. "Ilara, they're listening. Thesia wants to negotiate, to understand. You've ignited a spark that might yet light the darkness between our worlds." Together, they crafted a response, weaving their knowledge and hopes into a fabric sturdy enough to hold a truce, or perhaps, in time, a lasting peace. The weight of their secret mission grew heavier, but so did their resolve to carry it through, driven by the belief that even the most fragile connections could mend the breach of galaxies. As the encrypted communications between Calypso Minor and Thesia continued, Ilara and Vale became conduits of a clandestine diplomacy. Their secret missives were filled with the minutiae of proposed treaties and ceasefires, each message a step on a minefield of cosmic scale. Despite the threat of discovery and the consequences it would bear, they pressed on, driven by the tantalizing possibility of achieving what had seemed impossible, peace. The makeshift communications hub in the Med Bay became their sanctuary, a place where strategies were devised and ideals discussed. Vale, now almost fully recovered, shared insights into Thessian culture that Ilara relayed in their communications, ensuring that each proposal was framed in a way that honored both their people's values. One evening, as Calypso Minor's twin moons cast a silvery glow over the colony, a breakthrough came. The Thessian High Command expressed interest in a formal meeting to discuss terms. The location was to be neutral, a space station orbiting the uninhabited planet of Midway, a name that seemed apt given its role as a literal and figurative midpoint between human and Thessian territories. Ilara knew the risks involved. Such a meeting could either be the dawn of a new era or a spectacular trap. Despite the gravity of the situation, she felt a surge of hope, invigorated by Vale's confidence and the cautious optimism of his leaders. Preparations for the meeting were meticulous. Ilara was assigned as part of the diplomatic team, a role that required her to step far beyond her military training into the realm of diplomacy. She trained with diplomats, learning the nuances of negotiation and the importance of posture, tone, and timing. Vale, too, prepared himself, ready to stand not just as a representative of Thesia but as a testament to the potential for unity. The day of the meeting arrived. The delegation from Calypso Minor, including Elara, Colonel Anders, and a team of diplomats, boarded the transport vessel amid a palpable tension that permeated the ship. Across the divide, a similar vessel prepared to depart Thesia, carrying Vale and his own delegation. The journey to Midway Station was fraught with anxiety. Elara spent the hours reviewing her notes, rehearsing her part in the negotiations, her mind racing with scenarios. Beside her, Colonel Anders was stoic, his usual reserve deepened by the weight of what was at stake. Upon arrival, the human delegation was greeted with strict protocol. The Thessian team, led by Vale, was equally measured, their expressions revealing nothing of their thoughts or feelings. The initial greetings were formal, the air charged with a mix of suspicion and hope. Negotiations commenced in a high-ceilinged chamber aboard the station, where every word echoed against the cold metal walls. The first hours were tense, with both sides presenting their positions more like demands than parts of a dialogue. Slowly, however, the ice began to thaw. Vale's eloquence and deep understanding of his people's philosophy impressed the human diplomats, softening their approach. Elara took the floor, her voice steady. "This conflict has cost both our peoples dearly. We are here not to claim victory but to find a path to coexistence." Her words, sincere and resonant, marked a turning point in the talks. As the hours turned into days, the station seemed to shrink around them, the vastness of space pressing close. Breakthroughs came slowly, built on compromises and the mutual desire to avoid further bloodshed. Agreements began to form, fragile at first, but gaining strength as understanding grew. The final session was a marathon of endurance and will. Exhausted but determined, Elara and Vale stood side by side as the last of the agreements were signed. The document was a testament to their efforts, a detailed treaty that addressed border disputes, trade, and the exchange of prisoners and cultural knowledge. As the delegations prepared to depart, a sense of accomplishment mixed with disbelief filled the chamber. They had done more than negotiate a treaty, they had begun to bridge a gulf of misunderstanding and fear. Back aboard the transport vessel, Elara allowed herself a moment of reflection. The stars beyond seemed brighter, the universe less foreboding. Beside her, Vale's presence was a silent affirmation of the progress they had made, a symbol of hope that even in the darkest spaces, light could be found. As the diplomatic shuttle glided back towards Calypso Minor, the treaty documents secured within a metallic case at Elara's side, the weight of their potential impact began to settle in. Both she and Vale knew that the real work would start once they landed. Implementing the treaty would be as delicate as the negotiations had been. Upon arrival, the reception was mixed. News of the treaty had spread, stirring a spectrum of reactions among the colony's populace. While some viewed it as the first hopeful sign in a generation, others were skeptical, unable to see past the years of propaganda and distrust that had painted the Thesians as nothing short of monsters. Colonel Anders, now acting as a provisional liaison for interspecies affairs, summoned Elara and Vale to a briefing. The room was filled with high-ranking officials and representatives from various sectors of the colony. The air was thick with anticipation and undercurrents of doubt. "We've achieved something remarkable," Anders began, his voice cutting through the murmur of conversations. "But the real test is the implementation of these agreements. We need to ensure compliance on both sides while maintaining our security and sovereignty." Vale stood, his stature commanding silence. "We are aware of the challenges ahead. The Thessian High Command is committed to this peace. We must be allies in this endeavor, not adversaries." The discussions that followed were intense and thorough. Security protocols, trade routes, and cultural exchange programs were outlined and debated. Elara found herself at the center of these discussions, her insights from the negotiations proving invaluable. As the days passed, Elara and Vale worked tirelessly, coordinating with both human and Thessian teams to oversee the implementation of the treaty. The first test of their efforts came with the exchange of prisoners. It was a highly symbolic gesture, and both sides watched closely. The exchange took place on neutral ground, a barren moon chosen for its isolation. Ilara was there, her heart pounding with a mix of hope and anxiety. One by one, prisoners from both sides walked across the demarcation line, their expressions ranging from disbelief to relief. When the last prisoner had crossed over, a collective breath seemed to be released across the cosmos. Next, the establishment of joint research facilities was initiated, focusing on technology and medical advancements. Ilara visited the construction sites, her military background giving her insight into the security needs without stifling the collaborative spirit the project required. However, not all was smooth. Incidents of sabotage from hardline factions on both sides threatened to unravel the progress. Each incident was a blow to the fragile trust they were building. Vale and Ilara found themselves often in the role of mediators, addressing grievances and reinforcing the benefits of the treaty. In one instance, a critical supply shipment to the joint facility was intercepted by human extremists. The culprits were apprehended, but the message was clear: not everyone was ready for peace. Ilara addressed the colony in a broadcast, her words chosen to heal and inspire. "We must be courageous in our quest for peace," Ilara said, facing the camera, her gaze unwavering. "Let us not be defined by fear but by our hope for a future where our children can look up at the stars not with dread, but with wonder." Amidst these trials, the cultural exchange programs began, bringing Thessian and human artists, scholars, and civilians together. Ilara attended the first of these events, a concert where Thessian and human musicians performed a piece that blended elements from both cultures. The music, haunting and beautiful, seemed to transcend the barriers of language and species. The path was not easy, fraught with setbacks and challenges, but with each small victory, the foundation of the treaty strengthened. As Ilara watched the combined audience of humans and Thesians applauding the performance, she felt a surge of pride and hope. Beside her, Vale's hand found hers, a simple gesture packed with meaning. Together, they had turned the tide of history, not through conquest but through cooperation and understanding. Months passed, and the fabric of peace woven by Ilara and Vale began to integrate into the daily lives of both Thessian and human communities. However, as the novelty of peace wore off, the complexities of interspecies relationships began to surface. New challenges emerged, ones that required not just diplomatic finesse but a deep, mutual understanding. Ilara found herself increasingly involved in economic negotiations, a role that required her to navigate the subtleties of trade agreements that were influenced by both cultural nuances and the stark realities of resource management. Thesia, rich in rare minerals but poor in agricultural capabilities, offered a complementary economic profile to Calypso Minor, yet each trade agreement required careful balancing to avoid perceptions of exploitation or unfair advantage. During one critical session, a disagreement arose over the valuation of Thessian ion crystals, crucial for human technology but sacred to Thessian culture. The Thesians viewed these crystals not merely as commodities but as core elements of their spiritual life. Vale, understanding the delicate nature of the issue, turned to Ilara outside the negotiation room. "We need a solution that respects our cultural values while fulfilling economic needs," Vale expressed, his tone serious. "It's not just about the crystals. It's about demonstrating that our cultures can truly coexist and respect one another." Ilara nodded, her mind racing through potential solutions. She proposed a cultural exchange initiative alongside the trade agreement, where human scientists would work alongside Thessian spiritual leaders to understand the cultural significance of the ion crystals while studying their properties. This approach not only eased the tension but deepened the mutual respect between their people. Meanwhile, educational exchange programs had started, with students and researchers crossing the space between planets to learn and collaborate. Ilara attended the opening of the first joint university program on Calypso Minor, where young humans and Thesians would study together. Watching the eager faces of the students, she felt a renewed sense of hope. However, the harmony was occasionally marred by incidents of cultural misunderstandings and prejudices. A human professor inadvertently offended his Thessian colleagues by dismissing a traditional Thessian theory as primitive science during a lecture. The incident threatened to escalate into a diplomatic issue until Ilara stepped in, facilitating a series of discussions that led to a public apology and a seminar on Thessian scientific contributions, which helped to smooth over the ruffled feathers. Security remained a concern, with both species facing threats not only from within but also from external forces skeptical of their peace. A fringe group of alien mercenaries attempted to disrupt a key diplomatic summit by launching a stealth attack. The attack was foiled thanks to joint security protocols that Elara had helped to develop. The incident served as a stark reminder of the fragility of their peace. Throughout all these trials, Elara and Vale maintained a close partnership, their bond deepening into a profound connection that was both a professional alliance and a personal understanding. They often spent long nights discussing the future, imagining a galaxy where their example could pave the way for broader interstellar peace. One evening, as they walked through the colony's botanical garden, Vale turned to Elara, his expression thoughtful. "What we are building here, it's more than treaties and trade agreements, isn't it? It's a testament to the power of empathy and understanding." Elara looked up at the stars, their light shining down on the lush greenery around them. "Yes, it is. We're proving that peace isn't just an absence of war. It's a vibrant, living thing, crafted by those brave enough to change their perspective of the world." As they stood together, the sounds of the garden around them, Elara realized that their efforts had sown seeds of change that would grow long into the future, perhaps setting a precedent for other conflicts around the galaxy. This realization didn't lessen the weight of their responsibilities but rather highlighted the importance of their continued dedication to the path they had chosen. As the seasons changed on Calypso Minor, the cultural and economic fabric between the human and Thessian communities wove tighter, creating a mosaic of interdependency that was both beautiful and complex. This evolving relationship, however, brought with it a new set of challenges, especially as both races began to deal with the implications of their intertwined destinies. One significant challenge was the growing movement of citizens between the two planets, which brought to light stark differences in societal norms and legal structures. Thessian law, which was deeply intertwined with their spiritual beliefs, sometimes clashed with the more secular and pragmatic human legal systems. Elara found herself in the middle of these tensions when a Thessian citizen was arrested on Calypso Minor for a ritual practice that violated local law. The incident sparked a flurry of diplomatic activity. Elara, working closely with Vale and legal experts from both sides, helped to navigate the delicate process of crafting an addendum to the treaty that addressed legal protections for cultural practices, while also respecting the sovereign laws of the host planet. This diplomatic maneuvering required careful communication and a deep empathy for the values of both cultures. As Elara delved deeper into these complex legal negotiations, she also took on the role of an educator, holding public forums on both Calypso Minor and Thesia to explain the nuances of the new legal frameworks. These forums, initially met with skepticism, gradually began to build a bridge of understanding, as citizens of both races came to realize the depth of their commitment to coexistence. Parallel to the legal challenges were the ongoing economic integrations, which saw the rise of joint ventures that promised mutual prosperity but also exposed vulnerabilities. A joint mining operation on an asteroid belt, harnessing the unique technologies of both races, became a beacon of their collaboration. However, the project was soon targeted by a coalition of rogue traders who saw the peace as a threat to their lucrative black market operations. The attack on the mining operation was swift and brutal, shaking the confidence of both Thessian and human investors. The response, however, showcased the strength of their alliance. Elara coordinated a joint military and security response, employing both human tactical prowess and Thessian advanced shielding technology, which not only repelled the attack but also secured the region against future threats. This victory was crucial, reinforcing the security aspect of their treaty and demonstrating to the galaxy at large that the Thesian-Human alliance was not only a diplomatic novelty but a formidable union capable of defending its interests. Amidst these developments, the cultural exchanges continued to flourish. A Thessian art exhibition, hosted in the heart of the human colony, drew crowds larger than any had anticipated. Elara walked through the exhibition with Vale, observing the humans as they interacted with Thessian art forms, sculptures that seemed to pulse with life, paintings that played with the viewer's perception of light and space. Vale, watching a young human child reaching out to touch a holographic installation that reacted to her touch with a symphony of colors, whispered to Elara, "Do you see? Art has a way of transcending words and laws. It reaches directly into the heart." Elara nodded, her eyes reflecting the dance of holographic lights. "It's a reminder," she said, "of why we fight so hard for this peace. Not just for the treaties we sign or the battles we deter, but for moments like these, moments of pure understanding." As they left the exhibition, the challenges awaiting them seemed less daunting. With each step they took, whether in the corridors of power or the aisles of an art gallery, they were forging a future that was once unimaginable. This was their testament to the galaxy, a declaration that peace was possible, that different worlds could not only meet but truly blend, creating something new and profoundly beautiful. As the alliance between the Thessian and human worlds strengthened, it began to attract attention from other civilizations within the galaxy, curious about the successful integration of two once warring species. Diplomats and envoys from various planetary systems sought to understand the framework of this peace, turning Calypso Minor into a hub of interstellar diplomacy. This influx of extraterrestrial interest brought with it both opportunities and new diplomatic challenges. During a particularly high-profile intergalactic conference hosted on Calypso Minor, Elara was tasked with leading a series of panels discussing the architecture of peace. The delegates were a diverse array, each representing a civilization with its own unique perspectives and historical grievances. Elara found herself navigating not just the discussions but also the intricate dance of interstellar politics, where every word could tip scales and every agreement had layers of implication. In one tense session, a dispute arose between two delegations over a territory claim that had been a dormant issue for centuries but flared up under the spotlight of the conference. Using the principles she had honed in her negotiations with the Thesians, Elara facilitated a dialogue that acknowledged each side's historical context while steering them towards a mutual acknowledgement of shared future benefits. Her ability to diffuse the tension without diminishing the concerns of either party elevated her status among the delegates as a skilled mediator. Amid these complex interactions, a covert threat emerged. A radical faction opposed to interspecies alliances targeted the conference, planning to disrupt the proceedings with a cyber attack that would cripple the station's life support systems. The plot was uncovered with mere hours to spare, thanks to joint Thesian human security protocols that Elara had helped implement. With Vale's assistance, Elara coordinated a response that not only thwarted the attack but also traced the perpetrators back to a rogue planet known for harboring criminals and dissidents. This crisis response not only averted disaster but also demonstrated the resilience of their security operations to the gathered delegates, reinforcing the strength of the Thesian-human partnership. The success of their emergency response had a ripple effect, enhancing the credibility of the conference's outcomes. The final declaration of the conference, drafted with significant contributions from Elara and endorsed by Vale and other key delegates, outlined a blueprint for peaceful conflict resolution that could be adapted by other worlds. As the conference drew to a close, Vale and Elara took a moment to reflect on the whirlwind of events in the relative quiet of the colony's observatory. They looked out at the stars, each one a silent witness to the unfolding history. Vale turned to Elara, his voice contemplative. "We have achieved more than I dared hope. Our alliance has not just prevented conflict, it's become a beacon for others." Elara, gazing at the constellation they had begun to call the Peacemakers, a group of stars symbolizing their collaborative efforts, felt a profound sense of accomplishment mixed with the weight of responsibility. It's a testament to what can be achieved when we choose to look beyond our differences and focus on our common goals. The impact of their work was becoming evident, not only within their own jurisdictions but across the galaxy. As they left the observatory, they were stopped by a young delegate from a distant system who expressed gratitude for their efforts. "Your work has inspired our system to reconsider old feuds," the delegate said, his eyes earnest. "You've shown us that peace is not a static state but a dynamic and evolving path." This interaction was a vivid reminder of their broader impact. The path they had chosen was indeed fraught with challenges, but each step they took forged a part of a larger narrative, a narrative of enduring peace that could one day encompass the galaxy. As the momentum of interstellar diplomacy grew, so too did the pressures and complexities faced by Elara and Vale. With Calypso Minor now recognized as a beacon of peace, they were invited to participate in a groundbreaking summit on the Unified Galactic Council, a newly formed body aiming to foster peace across multiple systems. This was an unprecedented opportunity to showcase their successful peace model, yet it also exposed them to the broader currents of galactic politics, where not all were in favor of such unity. Preparations for the summit were exhaustive. Elara and Vale, along with a team of diplomats and strategists, spent weeks crafting their presentation, refining their arguments to address potential skepticism and opposition. They knew that the success of their model could lead to its adoption by other conflicted star systems, potentially reshaping the political landscape of the galaxy. Arriving at the summit, held on a neutral space station orbiting the capital of the Galactic Council, they were struck by the diversity and number of participants. Species from across the galaxy, some of whom humans and Thesians had only read about in academic texts, were now engaging in earnest discussions about the future of their civilizations. The summit commenced with a series of keynotes by influential leaders, each presenting their visions for galactic governance and peace. When it was Vale's turn to speak, he captivated the assembly with his eloquent delivery and deep philosophical insights, grounded in the Thessian tradition of Veishal, which advocated for balance and respect for all life forms. Elara followed, providing a pragmatic yet passionate explanation of the practical measures they had implemented: joint security initiatives, shared economic ventures, and cultural exchange programs. She detailed the challenges they had faced, not shying away from discussing the setbacks and how they were overcome through persistence and mutual respect. The response was mixed. While many delegates were moved and inspired, others were skeptical, questioning the scalability of such a peace model in regions where deep-seated animosities and vast cultural differences prevailed. A particularly tense moment arose when a delegate from a war-torn system challenged Elara, questioning the applicability of their model to his own system's complex tribal conflicts. Elara responded with composure, acknowledging the unique challenges of each system but emphasizing the universal desire for peace and stability. Our model isn't a one-size-fits-all solution, she conceded, but the principles of mutual respect, shared benefits, and open dialogue are adaptable. It's about finding the common ground and building upon it, even if it's just one step at a time. As the summit progressed, Elara and Vale engaged in numerous side meetings, workshops, and informal discussions, tirelessly advocating for their approach. They listened to the concerns of other systems, adapted their advice to different contexts, and gradually built a coalition of like-minded leaders committed to trying their model. The final day of the summit brought a vote on whether to endorse the Calypso Minor model as a recommended template for conflict resolution. The tension in the assembly was palpable as the votes were cast. In a significant victory, the model was endorsed, though not unanimously, paving the way for pilot peace projects across the galaxy. Despite the triumph, the real work was just beginning. Elara and Vale knew that the endorsement was not a guarantee of success. It was merely the first step in what would be a long and arduous process of adaptation and implementation. Returning to Calypso Minor, they were greeted as heroes, but the celebration was tempered by the knowledge of the challenges ahead. In a quiet moment after the festivities, Vale and Elara met in the garden where they had first dreamed of influencing the galaxy. "Today, we planted seeds in fertile ground," Vale observed, looking out over the verdant landscape. "But it will take time, care, and dedication to see them grow." Elara nodded, her gaze thoughtful as she watched a sunset paint the sky with hues of hope and determination. "And we'll be here to nurture every step, to ensure that these seeds bloom into lasting peace." As they stood together, the fading light casting long shadows behind them, they were not just witnesses to history but shapers of a future that held as many possibilities as there were stars in the sky. As the impact of the Galactic Council's endorsement began to resonate across the cosmos, Elara and Vale found themselves at the forefront of a new chapter in galactic diplomacy. They were now not only representatives of their respective species but also symbols of hope and pioneers in a grand experiment of interstellar peacebuilding. With the Calypso Minor model gaining traction, Elara and Vale coordinated the establishment of pilot programs in various star systems, each tailored to the unique cultural and political landscapes of those regions. These programs often required delicate adjustments and a deep sensitivity to local traditions and histories, challenges that both diplomats embraced with unwavering commitment. Amidst their broader responsibilities, they also focused on strengthening the foundations of peace at home. On Calypso Minor, they spearheaded the development of a cultural heritage site that celebrated both human and Thespian histories, a museum that would serve as a testament to their journey and a beacon for visitors from across the galaxy. As the museum neared completion, Ilara took a moment to walk through the quiet halls with Vale, their footsteps echoing softly against the stone floors. The exhibits around them were filled with artifacts, art, and interactive displays that told the stories of their peoples, their wars, and, most importantly, their reconciliation. "It's more beautiful than I imagined," Ilara remarked, stopping before a holographic display that depicted the signing of their initial peace treaty. Vale nodded, his eyes reflecting the holographic lights. "It's a reminder of where we started and how far we've come. But also, it's a beacon for the future." As they continued their tour, they discussed the upcoming inauguration of the museum, which was to be attended by dignitaries from numerous star systems. It was an event that symbolized their success but also reminded them of the ongoing need for vigilance and adaptation. The day of the inauguration arrived with much fanfare. The museum was a flourish of activity, with guests arriving from distant worlds, each eager to witness the proof of a successful peace. Ilara and Vale greeted their guests with the grace and poise of seasoned diplomats, each handshake and smile a reinforcement of their commitment to their cause. During the ceremony, Ilara gave a speech that encapsulated their achievements and the lessons learned along the way. "Today, as we open this museum, we are not just celebrating a past accomplishment but also forging a commitment to the future. This place will stand as a reminder of the power of understanding and cooperation, serving as a guide for all who seek peace in their own worlds." The applause that followed was not just in appreciation of her words but in recognition of the hard-won peace that those words represented. Vale's speech followed, equally poignant, highlighting the role of cultural understanding in building a lasting peace. "This museum does not only belong to Thesians and humans but to the galaxy. It is a cornerstone upon which many more bridges of peace can be built." As the celebrations continued, Ilara and Vale stepped aside for a quiet moment, looking out over the crowd of diverse beings sharing stories and laughter. This, Ilara thought, was the true measure of their success, not the quiet halls of a museum but the lively interactions of its visitors, each a thread in the ever-growing tapestry of galactic peace. In the weeks and months that followed, the museum became a hub of activity, drawing visitors not just from neighboring planets but from across the galaxy. It served as a venue for conferences, a center for educational programs, and a symbol of what could be achieved when two vastly different peoples decided to choose peace over conflict. For Ilara and Vale, the work continued, each day presenting new challenges and opportunities. But they faced each one with the knowledge that they were no longer alone in their efforts. Across the galaxy, the seeds of peace they had planted were beginning to sprout, nurtured by the countless individuals who shared their vision of a united and peaceful cosmos. In the grand tapestry of the universe, their story was but one of many, yet it stood as a testament to the possibility of change and the enduring power of hope.